When it comes to Random Dungeon Finder, the community is split. At a time like this where I'm reading comments that if Random Dungeon Finder isn't in the game, they will unsubscribe, it does make me wonder if the reverse would happen. By this, I mean there's a vocal minority, and I say minority because these polls here show that actually a larger portion of the player base want Random Dungeon Finder or don't actually care whether it's there or not, than those who don't want it at all. If it was implemented, would the "we don't want it" camp quit the game? For the next 5 minutes or so, I want to lay out everything you need to know about Random Dungeon Finder, some options that could please everyone, and ultimately a video you can tweet or share to the Blizzard developers to give them some idea so when the implementation is complete, it's actually good, hopefully. Just looking at this one straw poll with over 6,500 votes as it stands, you can see 61% are in favour of having it in the game versus 22% that don't want it. Don't get me wrong, there are some people that don't care whether it's in or want it at a later phase, but still, it is only 22% of everyone that's voted that don't want to see it at all. So first, let's start with what it is from historic patch notes. So in patch 3.3 it was introduced and it supports 5-player instances. It's designed for pugs, and there's a reward system attached. So the key thing to take away from these patch notes is it was designed for pugs. Yes, you can queue with a full 5-man group if you want to, but actually that wasn't the intention. The intention is to get away from staring at a chat box trying to find a group. It came with a reward system where you get a satchel of helpful goods while you're leveling. This is doing random dungeons from Classic and TBC dungeons, and in current content doing heroics, you get 2 of the highest emblem of the current tier for your first heroic of the day. So in tier 7, an example of this would be getting 2 emblems of valor, and then you get a further 2 lower tier emblems for all completed random heroics from there on out. One of the biggest complaints about it is the anonymity which comes with being able to queue cross-server. You can have a quick check and make sure it's all people from other servers, and then, for the lack of a better word, you can be a complete dick, with no repercussions. What you'll see here, though, is it was actually made as a way to help people on low population servers, and it would have absolutely helped those people, like it would help those people today. There is absolutely no doubt about it. So moving on from the downsides of cross-server, if you was a dick, people could vote to kick you. Now, the way it was intended to be is you can't vote to kick for 15 minutes, which, let's face it, you can do the vast majority of heroics in Wrath in 15 minutes. So if you was in there for longer than that without making any real progress, it probably is fair to say that it's time to reassess the situation and perhaps someone is AFKing or causing wipes. Now, it needs to be the majority of the group to agree to kick this person, and this is where the system is abused on private servers. There is no 15-minute grace period at the start. So if you don't like the instance you've got, you can all vote to kick each other and get out of the dungeon with no deserter cooldown, so you can instantly queue again. That wouldn't happen in Classic if the tool is done right. And another thing on the system was originally when it was introduced, as you can see from this blue post here, there wasn't meant to be a limit to the amount of heroics that you could do. Now remember, this wasn't introduced until 3.3, where actually running heroics for most people was just the first one of the day you did to get your current tier emblem, and then not bother again. How it should work, though, is you can still only do each of the heroics once per day, and once you're locked, you're locked. You can no longer queue with the tool or walk into the heroics. It's just normals that you're now able to continue to spam. Now, on private servers, that's how it works. On private servers, you once you've done all of your heroics, the tool will not let you queue anymore. A big complaint, aside from the community aspect, is that on launch, everyone will just be stood in Dalaran doing heroics. This won't be the case. Everyone on launch will be doing what is referred to as walk-ins, and it's exactly that. You're going to have to run the old school way to the instance and walk in. This is because the heroics have a 180 average eye level requirement to queue. So let's look at this logically. There's 17 slots on your character sheet. If you use a 2-hand, whatever your eye level of your weapon is, you just times by 2. So if you was going into Wrath of the Lich King pretty much full tier 6 and loads of Sunwell gear, we'll say you're wearing some Sunwell pieces that are an average of 160 eye level. So if you had 6 Sunwell items that were particularly good because they had lots of sockets on, and you got 11 new items from normal 80 dungeons. The normal 80 dungeons drop 187 gear. With 11 level 80 items and 6 Sunwell items, you'll only have an average eye level of 177. So you still won't be able to queue for random heroics. You need more upgrades. So to put it in perspective of the sort of items that you would need, if you had 4 level 200 pieces, which come from level 80 heroics now, or possibly crafted gear or just bought off the auction house, and 7 upgrades from normal level 80 dungeons, and you've still got your 6 Sunwell pieces because you're holding onto them because of the extra gem sockets they've got, you would now just scrape by into being able to access the random heroics in Dungeon Finder. Now, as we know, it only has to be equipped eye level, so you could have warriors put in cloth items on that are going to boost their eye level to be able to actually get in. That absolutely will happen. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot I can think of that you could do to combat that. The only good thing is, at the start, most of those pieces are going to be required by people, so it shouldn't be a problem that you see early on. So either you're going to need to be really, really lucky in your first round of walk-in heroics, or it's going to take a few days before you can even use the random Dungeon Finder tool. So on the basis you're mixing in normal dungeon gear, level 200 eye level, which would come from heroics, and some really good Sunwell gear, and you still can't queue, you can see how long actually it's going to take before you can use the Dungeon Finder tool. Because remember, there's going to be plenty of 200 eye level pieces of gear that you can buy from the auction house. BOE rings, for example, BOE daggers. There's lots of these 200 eye level pieces that will start cropping up so you can get your eye level high enough fairly quickly. But they're going to be quite expensive at launch because everybody's going to be charging a lot of gold for these. So let's pull all of this information together and think about what a suitable answer is, which I will just point out is not going to please everyone, but just try and be open-minded. Firstly, as we've discovered, the purpose of the tool is for pugs. So in Classic, have it so you cannot queue with more than one additional person. So you and your mate can do heroics together, but once your group starts making up the majority of the dungeon party, you cannot queue. You're instantly like, but what's the point of that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, leading on to our next discovery of how the kicking system works, this means that no single person can ever be kicked from a dungeon without more than just the pre-made portion of the group voting. This would make the system a lot more fair because, yes, two people who don't like you in that group who are together may vote to kick you, but it still needs one of the other randoms to agree that it's the right thing to do. For leveling, it's so good and actually opens up content to new players and you older players on your alts, because let's be completely honest here, no one does dungeons while leveling because of the run over to it. Finding people that aren't being boosted by mages, and quite honestly, if I was a new player who came back now and got all my Zul'Farrak quests, I'd be so annoyed that there's literally no one to run Zul'Farrak with. That was just an example, I mean any dungeon in general, but it's got a lot of quests in there. So the random dungeon finder for the 1 to 70 range is absolutely essential, and the reward of the bag with the loot in should also be there. But the reward from the random heroics at level 80 should be taken away. It will slow the gearing process down, which actually for the longevity of the game and enjoyment of Phase 1, this wouldn't be a bad thing. The heroic rewards for emblems could be added in the final phase as a catch-up mechanic for people just joining the game. This makes doing random dungeon finder solo or with your single friend no different to a guild group of 5 people running over to the heroic. No one gets any extra reward, but you as the person using random dungeon finder will actually likely be waiting longer to get in than it takes for a full group to form and run to the instance. And why is that? Because yes, the other big thing is cross-server. Now you instantly will be like, no Scott, it has to be cross-server because my server's dead and I can't get groups. Well, guess what? If random dungeon finder doesn't get implemented, your server is still going to be dead and you're still going to struggle to get groups. So having a random dungeon finder that is server only is better than not having it at all and removes a lot of the awful tank reserving unwanted blues on the really popular servers. And stuff like that really irritates me. This exact compromise on the system would provide us with random dungeon finder which doesn't affect anyone that's got a guild and will be running heroics with their buddies. But it helps the casuals, returning players, or antisocial people, yep, like you're probably going to say me, actually get into groups. I know some of you who are pro random dungeon finder are just going to be like, no, have it exactly how it should be, cross realm, cross everything. But let's just try and be a little bit open-minded. If you're pro random dungeon finder like me, try and meet the people who are not wanting random dungeon finder in the middle. How can we make it so it's useful for the targeted audience, the people that it needs to be useful for, without making it mandatory? That's the main thing. If there's no emblem rewards at the end, it's no longer mandatory. It's now optional. If you can't group with more than just you and your mate, it's not mandatory anymore. It's going to be more efficient to form a group. But if you just want to do a quick group, on your own, then brilliant, it's there. Please do make sure you like and subscribe. I'm really, really trying to get this big push to 40,000 subscribers. So smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.